Somehow, since 2016, I've managed to amass 7,200 hours in Planet Coaster. I mean, it's more like 8,000 if you include the pre-alpha release, but Steam doesn't count that, so we can't either. But anyway, that's a lot of time to spend on a game, and I mean, it's not the highest I've seen. Some of you guys really do challenge me for that title, but you guys don't often get a chance to peek behind my Planet Coaster history, and it's quite a history as well. So I thought, why not take a sneak peek at some of the parks I was working on every time I hit a milestone? Come on, you guys, let's go. Alright, so up first is Pennington Park, and it's a park that I created during the alpha days, and I had to recreate it when the game was released because it was broken. And I did put a tour of the original broken park on the channel somewhere. I'll leave a link in case you're even remotely interested in that. And I mean, this was a really fun park to pull together. I was only armed with knowledge of Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, and this was my first 100 hours in the game. So, shall we have a look at the park that I really cut my teeth on? Yeah, come on, let's go. Oh, you guys, we're starting off strong on this one. Welcome to Pennington Park. And I believe at the time, this was actually the first mega park that was put onto the workshop. And Ollie even did a video and stuff about it. But all I'm going to say is, lower your expectations. Times are very different. But this is the type of park that you were creating with the first 100 hours in game. It was all new. It was all fresh. It was all exciting. It was all, yes. And of course, this is pre-rehearsed because I did this in the pre-alpha and I had to rebuild it. But this is the caliber of stuff that you're doing. It's based on a map called Finding Frontier or New Frontiers or something. It's only available in the pre-alpha days, and I really miss this map. It's a beautiful, beautiful map to play on. I think this might actually be a legacy rollover from the alpha days because there's some stuff that's still broken, but this is so it's definitely from the beta days at least. But this was the time when they were starting to add in all of the special effects down here, so we were playing with the steam and the confetti and the bubbles and all that sort of stuff. Yes, it was amazing. I have so many fun memories of this park. I loved it. So this was the entrance area. It's functional. It does what it needs to do, right? And yeah, it's just nothing more to say. Nothing groundbreaking, but this is definitely neck-breaking. I mean, look at the state of this. And again, they hadn't implemented, or Frontier hadn't implemented track restrictions yet, so you could bend and manipulate your track however you wanted. And I was like, yeah, this would be good, because we didn't have Eurofighters when this was put. You're going to see a Eurofighter, but we didn't have them when this was put in. And I was like, okay, so this is going to be like my Eurofighter. That'll do. Anyway, I don't even know what I was thinking. But it was a castle-style build. This was very rudimentary and typical of what you could do in the early days of the game, and I absolutely love it. This is the wing coaster. So, by the way, you're going to see all of the coasters are crawling around the track, and that's because when this was done, the friction settings weren't a thing. So they were changed all the... Anyway, they changed it all. It's okay. This is good. I like this. I like this profiling. The rest is 2016. This bit in the middle here. This flawless coaster. I love this flawless coaster. I actually even came back and did this as a Reel Up My Ride episode. Loved it. Absolutely loved doing this coaster. So it's a pretty solid layout, and I mean, again, profiling stuff would be very different nowadays, but it's just an awesome layout with the loop into the 0G, into the Immelman. Yes. I do all sorts differently nowadays. Of course I would. At the back of the park then we had this invert. I think this is probably my favourite coaster in the park. This turned out so well, and I remember doing this off the back of a Silver Rat video. So yes, I absolutely love it. This hyper exists. I mean, what more could you say about the hyper? And then we had the SNS. Screaming Squirrel, no, not Screaming Squirrel, the other one. Anyway, the SNS coaster, and this was again supposed to be a Eurofighter, and it ended up being like this. This was a launch coaster that I put in the talk. Basically, my aim of this park was, oh wait, and I don't know if this is doing a double back. Yes, it's doing a double back. See, multi-launch swing launches were a thing in 2016, by the way, guys, just to let you know. It was an actual thing. So yeah, I wanted a park where I was putting every single coaster in, so it's fine, it's in. And then of course we've got this launch coaster, and if I remember rightly, somewhere, I don't know if I corrected it, but somewhere I had really bad banking. It was like outer banked, and I don't know where it is. No, I must have fixed it in this park. Anyway, so that was the launch coaster. Then there was a flying coaster that was in here. Again, this exists. It's a thing. The dive coaster turned out pretty well. I don't know what it was based on at the time. Actually, it must have been something like Cracker because of the, or maybe actually Oblivion Black Hole because of the profiling here. But yeah, it looked all right. Then we've got a Eurofighter. What even is this drop? Like, just no. Then we've got the Tiamat. I didn't even know what Skyrush was back when I did this, so this was this was fun. And then this was the first coaster over here, this RMC. Again, the whole T-Rex and stuff wasn't a thing back when this park was created, but this was my first foray into actual proper theming, so I wanted it to be around a castle, and the queue went around a lake and all sorts of stuff. So yes. Anyway, guys, I only want to spend like 3 to 5 minutes in each park, and that's been 5 minutes. So if you want more details or want more depth tour, put it in the comments. But onwards and upwards to the next park. Here we go. Alright then, guys, let's now skip forward a few months to our 500-hour park. This is Oxbridge Park, and this is a park where I really started to try my hand at something realistic, or at least what I thought was realistic at the time. Should we say it's got varying results? And I mean, the game was developing at about the same rate that I was too, so just when I thought I had something down, Frontier would come and introduce something completely new, and I was back to the beginning. But you are going to see a step up from Pennington, so let's have a look, shall we? Oh, you guys, another 400 hours gives you Oak Ridge. So yes, 500-hour park. And do you know what? This is the first time I've loaded this since I actually put it down. And there's a lot of stuff in here that I'd actually forgotten I'd loved. This is definitely a park that I was starting to find my flair. There's some good parts and there's some really, really scratchy parts. But ultimately, series like No Name Landia and the Geekism stuff was all out there at this point. And I was like, yeah, I could do something like this, you know. But the difference was I was playing with an actual story. Everything that I was putting together had a story behind it. It's like I had a timeline. It was almost like Royale Myle 1.0. Well, should we say 0.1? But you can see, like here, I'm finding my flair. Like, I'm starting to actually use the building tools for the sake of building. These are no longer boxes. These are no longer these awful things pulling together. It's actually a bit of design and a bit of thought going in. Now, plazas weren't a thing at this point. I think this was possibly just after update 1.1 or 1.2, I think. So plazas weren't a thing. We had to do creative things with pathways to make big open spaces. And then, yeah, this was the sort of stuff that I was going for here. It's all very Dollywood, not gonna lie, but I started to like think to myself, well, how would this train track start to interact with the park itself? And it's a bit low. Like I say, there's some really scratchy parts, but oh, guys, yeah, I just forgotten how this was. I remember doing this coaster after watching the Silverette tutorial on how to do arrow loopers, and this was also my first oh man, this was my first attempt at doing custom inversions. Go home, Arrow, you're drunk. But ultimately, this for me was like, yeah, I can do this. I'm all right at this game. Like, I'm enjoying it. I've got some hours in it. I'm starting to design things that I like. I mean, this invert isn't horrid. It's not positioned in a horrid way. This Studios pack didn't exist at this point. We had no don't die fencing. We had to create our own. And this was the beauty of doing that sort of stuff, right? You got to create all of these amazing fences that now when you look back, you go, no, this wouldn't work because that fence is 4 meters high and it doesn't need to be that tall. But there's just all sorts of fun stuff that goes on in a park like this. And do you know what? This Woody is a solid layout. I actually could probably pull this into one of my parks today and do something with it. Let me know if you want me to do that. Because it's a solid layout. It needs a bit of refining. Of course it does. This is 500-hour Chacho. But yeah, like, yes. And this whole idea of the rapids being deep down. Now, again, the idea of hiding stuff wasn't a thing back then. This was all about using the terrain tools as they were intended, as they were designed, and you were delivering stuff like this. But the idea of it sitting below the actual area here is all very legit. And up here, this theming of this castle, this was like taken from the RMC bit, and I was like, no, I want this on steroids, and I want to merge the RMC one that I did with the Talk one that I did in Pennington Park, and this is what came out of it. And like, there's the launch, and you walk underneath the launch, and it just goes round. And I think this has actually got 3 launches to it, 2 launches to it. No, it's only 2 launches, but ultimately it was this big coaster. This is a Giga, and it's not a Giga as you would recommend it. Like, literally nobody's going to get evac from these these breaks. But do you know what? It sits there. It would be in a completely different part of the park. It would be all sorts of different profiling. I would not do this as a Chacho series, but it's here. This Eurofighter, it's going to kill someone, and it's far too long for a Eurofighter, but it was still fun to do. And I was sort of trying my hand at Mystery Mine here, and I wanted it to come out right at the top and then come back down and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, today I'd do it differently, but it's got all the hallmarks of really starting to pull together themes. Like, this building looks incredible. I'm still so chuffed with this building. Like, this is a good mine building, even for like today's standards. And then coming on to really solid buildings, this race area. So I took the idea of the launch coaster in Pennington Park, and I wanted to make it on steroids. And again, there's no custom supporting and stuff here. I don't even think the custom supports at this point were in game, so you had to do them in various different ways. So for me, it was just like, nah, this will do. But this diner is a solid diner, especially for what we had in game at the time. And you know the diner from Jippety Point that I showed you in the previous episode? Well, that's kind of where this started, and that was kind of what we were going for here. So guys, that's the whistle stop tour. I mean, there is so much more to show you, but as I said, 5 minutes per park, and we're at 5 minutes. Let me know if you want to do a deep dive of this one, because we're going on to a park that you're definitely going to be familiar with. Look, everybody, it's the original Jippety Point, and this is around 1,000 hours, so the game had been developed massively by now. Theme Maker's Toolkit was an actual thing. This was my first park where I really started to dabble with it. Now, it's not as prolific as you see in my other builds, but just like picking up the game for the first time, you had to learn how to use Theme Maker's Toolkit. This was my park to do that in. Let's go and see it. Oh yes, we know this park is Jippety Point, and if you don't, welcome to the channel, because we've been doing this park up over the last 4 months. It now looks very different, but it will always have a soft spot in my heart, partly because it's 1,000 hours in game, and partly because it's the first time that Theme Maker's Toolkit makes an appearance, and you can tell that because of the stutter in the game. But this is the sort of stuff that we were using. We were starting to learn about Theme Maker's Toolkit and what it was capable of doing, how you can use it. There weren't many items on the workshop or anything, but it was like a slow and steady burn with this sort of stuff. You are now going to see a massive leap between Oak Ridge and this park, Jippety Point. And I mean, even this Eurofighter is completely different, right? I know we mocked it in the last episode when we were doing the whole 2024 comparison to Chacho's work, but now you can see the timeline. Now you can see how he went from Pennington Park into Oak Ridge and into Jippety Point. You can now see all of the subtle differences that I'm starting to learn as we go along. And of course, we've now got a bigger palette of stuff to play with too, so of course the parks are going to be very different. And I mean, this Woody is still solid. I still love this layout, and I still come back to the original Jippety Point and think, yeah, this is good. This is such a good Woody. We like a good Woody. And then of course we've got the log flume here, and again, this is my idea of doing really small, intimate, tiny themed areas and pulling those together rather than having these massive, expansive areas. This this dive coaster got a lot of flack in the last episode, but actually, when you come back to it and you compare that to the Pennington Park dive coaster, you can definitely see a difference. I mean, the realism is really kicking up here because we've now got stuff like the footers sticking out of the water. We've actually got don't dive fencing that we can use now, so parks are starting to feel more realistic. Plazas are now a thing, so you can now do plazas. As I said, we've got a completely different toolkit of stuff to use, a different palette of stuff that we can now put into the parks. So this is the sort of intricacies that you can come up with. And then of course, as series like No Name Landia and whatever started to mature, you started to get these ideas of how to use other stuff, right? How to use the stuff creatively. And I think it was Oh, is it Jaegerhorn by Silverette? That series was incredible for that sort of innovation, and this was the sort of thing that you could come up with. This was the first time that you could look at a picture on Google and go, I think I could recreate that in Planet Coaster, you know, and actually do a fairly decent job of doing that. So yeah, I'm chuffed. I'm chuffed with this one. As you already know, I shared my love in the last episode. This diner, again, it's an iteration of the one that was in Oak Ridge, and I'm absolutely still loving it. Like, I still come back to this diner and think, oh, this would still look good in a Chateau Park today. I don't know if I did reuse it, you know, but yeah. And of course, there are some design principles going on here, but this was the first time I started to do the realistic stuff. So, for example, at the end of this launch coaster, even though we question why the launch coaster's in the park to start with, at the end of the launch coaster, you have the launch building. This is where all the hydraulics and stuff would be. And then, of course, we now have stuff like maintenance sheds. I didn't use transfer tracks in the early days, right? All of my stuff, and you're going to see this in the next park, all of my stuff was always stuff tacked on to the side of brake runs. But hey, it was my way of dealing with realism. So like this bit here, actually this is quite realistic for an SLC because that tends to be what happens. That's a bad example. Let's go back over to the Eurofighter. So the Eurofighter probably wouldn't have this in any kind of maintenance setup. You would have it as a proper, either a transfer track or a pivot table, turntable, where it goes into a different area. But like I say, I'm starting to deal with realism at this point. And I probably just started working for Merlin as well when this park was pulled together. So this is now where I'm starting to actually get my theme park knowledge together. Not only have I got the Planet Coaster stuff down, and I'm familiar with the game and I know it intimately, I'm now starting to learn about theme parks, how they're designed, how they're put together, how they're run, how they're maintained and operated, and what they actually need. So yeah, this is, I think, my career actually starting to come out. But there is a full tour of Jippety Point. You know that already. I'll pop the link to that in the description below. But I think we go on to the next park because there's another massive shift. Let's go. So the next park is a little bit of a case of 1, 2, skip a few, because we're now at 2,500 hours in a park called Cullwell Wonderland. Now, there have been many other parks in the middle, including a version of Shorehaven Pier, multiple iterations of a Thorpe Park wannabe, and then some played versions and scenarios that I've loaded into the workshop. But this was my Big Daddy park, though. This was my COVID lockdown park. This is where I really started to test the limits of my realism. It's probably just better to show you, right, than to talk about it. Well, this is the difference an additional 1,500 hours in a crew in the theme park industry gets you. And even today, this is still a granddaddy of a park. I mean, I have loaded it in and I have completely missed it. And somehow, it managed to load with 30,000 guests. I don't know how. It would have been done on my old rig, the 7700, but it somehow managed it. But anyway, I am absolutely gutted that this park was never finished. Like, all of this stuff down here was all supposed to be done. All of this over here, it just sort of comes to an end. This was supposed to be a roller coaster that was interacting with the rapids, and that's why that was never done. All of this over here, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you get the message, right? But even still, this is still a park. I probably should come back and finish this one day, but all the tropes are starting to appear. All of the Chacho things that you are so used to with the builds. Like here, the maintenance area now has purpose. It has function to it. It has form. It has something. And you might actually recognise some stuff in parks. Like these warehouses I've used many times, and this hotel is now the complete right size. Like, the rooms are all the correct size, although I'm not doing interiors as such. I mean, I'm doing stuff like this, but I'm not doing anything major or anything like that. But this is also where we're starting to see some of the other stuff that you're used to in a Chacho park coming out. So I'm using path covers, for example. Well, not entire path covers, but I'm starting to do stuff with them. So like, I'm hiding all the unsightly bits. I am using Theme Maker's Toolkit to the max. Here's some lockers that are going on in here, and then of course we come over to the gift shop, which is here. And although it's not a full gift shop, I'm starting to put stuff together. Hey, do you recognise this? Recognise this? Oh man, I'm not even joking. Like, I've used this a lot. But I should probably steal these actually and use these in in other parks. But then we've also got the spinning coaster that's sitting here. You're probably familiar with that layout. It is the one that I've used everywhere else. Like, like I just literally dragged it into Raygate Lake and was done with it. Not even sorry about that. And if we come over to the rapids, now you'll start to see all of the maintenance areas and the backstage areas starting to come to life, right? So this is by no means not as detailed as any of the other backstage areas that I would be doing in modern day parks, but you're getting the idea, right? You're starting to get this idea that Chacho knows what he's talking about and he knows what he's doing. I mean, I'm not using the whole mulch technique yet. I am still using terrain to hide the sights of the edges here, but you're getting the picture. And oh my god, this invert, I still love this invert to this day. I mean, look at that profile. Oh, sexy. And it's got custom supports and all sorts. Like, I should definitely pull this into another park because I absolutely dig this invert. It's a beaut of an invert. And of course, I wanted to have the immersive theming stuff, so that's why it's all of this temple theme that we've got going on in here, right? So, and all the janitors are all bunched up, and I don't know why. The game just has this weird stuff. So this area then, of course, was pulled together based on me starting to think about how areas would look. So you've got the log flume this side, and you've got the hyper, which you will recognise the station. I made no secret about it being used in Chacholandia, but yeah, so this whole area was being pulled together. Then we come over to what I think is probably my favourite area of the park, or at least my favourite view of the park, and it's the dive coaster. Why do all of my dive coasters go into an M1 and into a 0G? I need to do something different. But this ultimately was like my favourite bit of the pirate area, and I started to think of sightlines and whatever in this park. And then of course here's all of the theming, and here was some pathing that I wanted to to hide. Hadn't quite grasped the idea of using path covers here yet. I mean, I am, although I'm not there. I am using path covers around and about, but yeah, it's all arbitrary, really, isn't it? And then of course we've got this area over here. You'll be familiar with this. So the version that was in Raygate Lake was pretty much a ramped up version of this. But hey, look, my wing coasters got better. They're still not perfect at this point, but they got better nonetheless. But yeah, this was like using theming, so I wanted this area to be right at the back of the park, but I wanted it to have a military theme, very much Swarm. That's all I'm gonna say. And then this bit here, this like medieval kind of area, I love this still. Like, this is still a beautiful area, and it sort of plays with terrain and design and whatever. And guys, that, I'm afraid, is your 5 minutes up. Gutting. There's so much to show you with this park. Like, if you want me to do a deep dive of this one, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, I think we need to move on, right? Because I think we're about to do the granddaddy of all the parks. Right, now we're hitting our stride, and we are only about halfway there, about 3,000 hours, and this is the big one. This was the first series on the channel, and to justify my place on the Planet Coaster scene, this park had to be pixel perfect. Like, literally be able to pick it up and build it in real life perfect. This was the park that was really going to stretch every single ounce of my experience and set the tone for my future builds. This is Raygate Lake. Well, you can definitely tell the quality of a Chacho park by how long it takes to load off the workshop. But picture the scene. COVID lockdowns in full swing. Chacho's the new kid on the block, and his USP, he's decent at Planet Coaster, and he's also got this knowledge of theme parks that no money can buy. The two kind of work well together. And this is where Raygate Lake comes from. But this park is huge. And at one point, I think it's actually more Theme Maker's Toolkit than in-game items. But look at it. It's just an absolute beauty. I've come back into this park, and I've fallen in love with it all over again. I mean, look at the interior in here. It's just perfect. And this is the thing with the park series that I do from here on in. Everything I do has to challenge my experience and expertise in some way, shape or form. And I think this is definitely probably going to be regarded as my most realistic one. Like, everything in here is designed with intent. Like, even down to, is it down here? These bits down here where I've added in the nuts and bolts of all of the wood and stuff. Like, there is literally every single fine detail that you can imagine is accounted for in this park. Here is the guest services building, and like even inside here, everything has a place. Everything is just there, like even down to the plug sockets on the walls. And then in the background here you have storage for the spare wheelchairs, you have office space, you have all sorts of stuff kicking on, even down to the business reception. Where's my business reception? Here we go, business reception. This is a proper full-on, completely unusable business reception in here, right? And then when you walk through this way, it just opens up into an office space. And that office space has got everything that you would imagine. It's got a kitchenette area here. It's got all of the office stuff inside here. In fact, now I look back on it, maybe it was a little bit overkill. But remember, this was the park where I was trying to prove my worth in the community amongst all of the people that are just incredible. Even down to the pond lining here being concrete. And if I just flip the camera, the ducks and stuff in the water. Like, it was just, everything was to the extreme. Maintenance areas were dialed up into all sorts of, it's giving me PTSD looking back at this, because it just, everything just took so long to do. And if we head over to the Curse of Drakeford Manor, Curse of Drakeford Manor, you can see, of course, it is a full-on building. It's a dark ride inside here, right? Here's the gift shop. Do you recognise any of this stuff? But if you walk on into the Curse of Drakeford Manor bits, you've got everything on the roof, and everything has a place. Like, it's pixel perfect for how this would be. Of course, you need to change the lighting and stuff, and it hides all of. Whoa, hello! It hides all of the top in here, right? But this is the maintenance area for this dark ride. I even went as far as doing the runners in the middle here, because I didn't like that the in-game ones didn't have them. So these were like the electrical runners for the actual dark ride. And yes, even like down to maintenance tracks. This is the first time as well, by the way, that I was doing proper station interiors. So here we'll find stuff like the push points, and you'll find all the catwalk clutter and the CCTV stuff on the side here. And if we come over to the rapids, now we find ourselves using stuff like cyclical stations. If I go through the trees, cyclical stations and all that sort of stuff. This is all just as you would imagine it to be in real life, right? The only thing is you're still limited to the game. So while the game presents all of these limits to you, you can still represent stuff. I even went as far as, where is it? Hotel. Even went as far as doing the hotel, and this was like just a ridiculous build. This was weeks and weeks worth of work. I think it was a 3-episode thing, but it just turned out so incredibly. Like, I just love it. I just love it. Like, even down to the reception. Like, it's definitely too many staff in that reception, but the reception. And yes, it even has elevators. There you go. It has a full-on games arcade inside here. And I forgot about the pool bar. Oh my god, the pool bar. Yes. This was one of my favourite bits of the park as well. Like, just how this was all pulled off. And then if we go inside here, yeah, I also did all the hotel rooms, even though they are completely unusable. So like I say, this was my super detail. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be accounted for. Everything needed a place. Well, I could spend longer than 5 minutes touring it, but that's your 5 minutes up, I'm afraid. I'll put the link in the description for the tour. But it's onwards and upwards to the other park series. I can't wait to show you. So with Raygate Lake now a thing of the past, the hard challenge was to follow it up somehow, and then it came to me, the anti-Raygate Lake in the form of a more casual park similar to Fantasy Island in Skegness. The question here though, what was going to be the park's USP? Well, it turned out to be theming inside a dark area and more shop interiors. Alright, so hear me out, because we're at 4,000 hours by this point, and robbing real life designs became an actual thing, and I'm so glad we did. I'm so glad we went straight for Fantasy Island, because this wouldn't have turned out like it did without it. I mean, I wanted it to feel like these rides were slapped into this car park, and that the go-karts lived at the back here, and then you've just got completely inappropriate roller coasters going through areas and being like really bunched together, but then having these beautifully themed mini areas of actual rides going on that sit next door to the maintenance area and a car park coaster, right? So I absolutely love it. Forgive the fact that this park is lagging, by the way. That's because, and I'm running it on a powerful rig, that's because this roof is something stupid like 120,000 pieces or something. Like, it's bad. But on the outside, this is everything I wanted this to be. This is where we're going to start, like this bit, because everything in here had an interior. All of the shops and stuff were just done, and this took every single piece of my design skill to do this. Like, this was done over a space of, I think, 5 weeks. And I'm so glad that I did. Like, Shaky Shanes. This interior was just amazing. The Bergs unit. Oh, yes. Like, this is all coming back to me, and I wish that I could just do another thing like it. But it was all just so well done in the first place. Like, there's the bowling alley, and then inside here was just like the full package, the full thing, like even down to the bar. So, I mean, I didn't show this to you in Raygate Lake, but the bar is all kitted out as you would expect it to be. And then when we come around this way, I'm not going to show you every shop because you can download the park and you can explore it for yourself, right? But you then got Game of Cones. So remember all the puns? Do you remember the puns we did? Oh, that was so much fun. But yeah, this was like all about interior design in here, and it was all about how the shops would look, and this is like a ridiculous level of detail to go to for an ice cream parlor, right? I even went down as far as putting the ice cream stuff in, and these are just the fences that are dug down. So what I was doing here was taking all of my experiences that I had managed to muster together in Raygate Lake and pulling it into an actual theme park itself. Rather than going for the jank generic design, we were going for high profile, high design, and like even the bar area here is all is all as it would be and should be. But ultimately, I'm going to try and get a decent angle without ruining this, because it's difficult, right? But ultimately, come on, this was what we were going for inside here. Let me just swap this to nighttime, because I think this is definitely better at night. There we go. This lighting and this effect and everything amongst it was just why I did this park. And it just came to life. It came to life, I think, for me when I was doing this golf course. This golf course itself was like the whole pinnacle of this design, and I love it. Even down to like how you would usefully use the space inside here. This was my first opportunity to start toying with how I was going to do these different flooring things, like, because I wanted this rounded piece, but the flooring bits were square. So how do I deal with that? I wanted this idea of having multi-stacked stuff. How did I deal with all of that? So this was all, like, for me, a massive learning curve, but it was so good. Like, this was just a proper indoor park. It makes me want to do another indoor park, right? And I tried it, but I just couldn't find the inspiration to do it. But yeah, like, when you look at all of this sort of stuff in here, it's just, I love this park, right? I just love it. It's just all the lights and how it twinkles and how it just looks exactly as it should do in the darkness. If you go to Fantasy Island, this is exactly how Fantasy Island looks. It's just so well lit and so well decorated and so themed, and each individual area has a very specific, very unique theme. So I didn't just do, this whole thing is going to have the same theme and we're just going to run along with it. It all had purpose and it all had thought and stuff going into it. And I mean, there's all the stuff on the floor that we used in the most recent iteration of Jippety Point. And then the pirate area. I just love this pirate area. Like, it's just so... Yes. But ultimately, that's your 5 minutes up, I'm afraid. If you're wanting to go and see the full tour, pre-warning, it's my old content style, so it's should we say a mess? But this was Fundy Funspot. I mean, I still love it today. So we're going to need to skip over a couple of your favourite parks to hit 6,000 hours now, and we're going to land in Grosvenor Gardens. And whilst I've got love for parks like Chacholandia, this was also the park that took my theming up to the top level. And it's also my first real terrain park too. I want also the aquarium. I mean, you can see why I've chosen this one. Oh man, coming back into this park, and you can see why this was the most watched series of the channel, because I just absolutely love it. I've fallen in love with it all over again. It's just this beautiful park from the top down. It's everything you want a park to be. Like, everything beautifully themed in these little pockets, and you look down and you just looks like you could be looking at Google Earth. It really does. And I mean, remembering that I'm now 6,000 hours into my Planet Coaster experience, so I now know what I'm doing with the game. I know how to manipulate it, and I know how to do stuff with it, but ultimately you still have to be inspired, and Gardaland is definitely the inspiration for this park. I mean, look at this entrance. It's just Gardaland all over, isn't it? But it's just so beautiful, and this is definitely a park where I was starting to play with theming. I mean, look at this aquarium. It's just, from the outside it's an aquarium, but this is just ostentatious from the very beginning. I mean, you've got all of these tanks that are in here, and you've got the touch tank here. I'm just going to skip through the wall a sec and into like the pirate fishing village that's inside here. This is all hand placed, and it's all crafted using the game. It's just, I think I need to do a park like this again. I really do. Like, you guys asked me for high detail parks, right? This is your high detail park. This is your one that I've absolutely fallen in love with, even down to this viewing area up here, and then the dolphin tunnel and stuff. I just, that aquarium is still absolute top tier stuff. And even then, like, when you look at the rest of the park, you've got the Pioneer. I'd never ever used a Pioneer in a park before, and then this is the Pioneer that you come up with, and these are the viewpoints and stuff that you get. Just look at how just realistic it is. It just looks, it's not photorealistic because it's Planet Coaster. It will never be photorealistic, but just look at how detailed it is and how awesome it all turned out. And then you come down to the well, it's not a log flume, is it? I mean, we use it as a log flume because it's supposed to be an intimate log flume, but you come down to the Temple of Shack, and yes, it's just look at it. Like, I can't even believe that I did this. This came out of my brain somehow, and I just don't even know how I did it. Now, there are a few flaws, right? Let's not be around the bush here. This terrain level is definitely too extreme. I think I would have done a slightly different terrain. But remembering that I was going for Legoland Windsor, and at Legoland Windsor you can definitely see London from the top there. So that's why I've gone for such terrain heights. And I mean, there's the archetype B&M dive coaster, of course. There it is. But it was profiled to the new school B&Ms. Then, of course, we had our launch coaster here that's very much like Colossus at Thorpe Park, but it's just this idea of this island adventure. And then we come across to this bit here. So is it Fathom Fight, wasn't it, we called it, because it's the shooting dark ride. But it's this idea of having this grand facade that's pirate themed, and then on the top here you've just got this hidden little oasis of stuff going on. So again, this is so Gardaland. This is everything I think I wanted Gardaland to be, let's be honest, even down to the rapids, right? So this is the first time that I started to do rapids properly. I mean, you saw it in Raygate Lake, right? But I was now starting to deal with theming and stuff within a rapids ride, and this is the sort of stuff that you're able to pull together, even down to having the themed bits here, and then all of the escape pathways and stuff going on, and then you've just got the railway line that goes through the back end of the park. Oh, yes. And then you've got the hyper, the controversial hyper, the one that's sitting on the side of a hill. Now, you saw this, right, in Oak Ridge. You saw me throw a coaster off the side of a hill. That's kind of where this idea came from, but this is definitely more suited to this. Do I wish I hadn't done this end of the ride? Yeah, it probably should have just come to, anyway, it's fine. I'm not doing a pull apart. But then we come to one of the quickest watch videos on the channel, and it was this one. It was the Mine Train coaster, and yeah, I just love it. Like, even the Mine Train coaster I put into Royal Mile It's very much loosely based around this one. And then we just come over this way, and this was the time before Pipeline Surf Coaster was in, and I was like, well, okay, what would a Chacho take on a surf coaster look like? And it was pretty much this. And do you know what? It's not actually too dissimilar to how they are. The only difference is I used the wrong trains. I didn't use the stand-up trains. I was convinced that they were probably going to be a sit-down train, but yeah, I mean, it's just good. This park is good. Even down to the inverted commas lazy area that I did. And that was where it was like thrown together because it was peak 80s and stuff. I just absolutely love it. It's just, guys, it's my favourite park. I'm calling it now. All of the others can just do one. 5 minutes is not enough to do this justice. Like, you really need to go and watch the tour on this one because it's incredible. But it doesn't stop there because we've got one more park up our sleeves. So our penultimate pit stop on the Chacho Experience Tour is the park that saw me through to my 7,000th hour in game, and it's a series where I wanted to show how a park develops over time, and it ended up being the longest running one of the entire channel, literally and figuratively. Spanning from 1930 to 2023, the Royal Mile really triumphed at testing my theme park history knowledge. Let's go take a look. Oh, it's the Royal Mile. Of course it's the Royal Mile, and this is going to be the series that you guys are the most familiar with because it ended the most recently, but this is definitely a culmination of 7,000 hours in game. I mean, this contains elements of everything that you guys crave. It's got the high detail stuff, it's got the theming stuff, it's got all of the park planning bits, but in addition to that, it's also got all of the history that comes with this park, because we didn't need to build the areas around the history of the park. We actually built the history. This area, for example, has grown up since 1930. It's seen 3 coasters. It was the original Flying Turns coaster, then it was the Steel Mine Train coaster, and now it's this iteration here. And like all along the bank here, you've just seen it change over the years. All of these views have all changed, and all of the stuff was added as we went along. And guys, it was just so much fun to pull this together. I mean, of course, the original entrance was up here before we put this completely grotesque Plomp-Pop area in, but that's exactly what parks would have done, and this is like, it's true to that. Like, we didn't need to sit here and say, oh, maybe the entrance would have been roughly here, this, that. No, it was here, and you saw us retheme it, and you saw us demolish it, and you saw us put it all together again into a new area. So that's what I loved about it. And I mean, this was the entrance that we ended up putting in the year 2000. It's got all of those details that you would expect from a Chacho park. I mean, if I can get the camera right, all of the interiors and stuff are all done, and he's sat there waiting to sell tickets, but it ended up just being a little bit themed. So it's very different to Grosvenor Gardens that you've just seen, but it's still got everything that you would need at the level of detail that you want. And this park offers such incredible sightlines. I mean, just look at this, down to even the historic Woody that's sort of sitting here on the side of the hill. It's just here, and this is what I absolutely love about this park. This is kind of what I wanted Grosvenor Gardens to be. It's subtle hill changes, because you are definitely higher. In fact, that's not even the highest point. So you're definitely higher up here than you are down at the lake, and you sort of slope down to the lake. But actually, now I've gone back to Grosvenor Gardens, I'm really happy with the terrain changes in there and stuff. Of course, then we've got the medieval area. This grew up over time, and it feels backwards, and that's because it is. You originally entered through this way, but now you go through this way, and so it's all been there. You've seen it all happen. The coaster that's living here, there was a different coaster here before, and in fact it was all woodlands and stuff before that. And talking about woodland, this is also ex-woodland, and I mean, it was just pulled into a theme, and I still love this theme. This was the first time I started to use all of the alpine stuff, the snow and whatever, and yeah, I've come back to it and gone, do you know what, I really like it. I am here for it. I mean, the sightlines that you get here, you've seen all of these before, because as I said, this is the most recent thing, but yes. And of course, then you've got the first rapids ride that went in, and everything is just as you would find it. And then this is the park where I also started to properly do stuff like this, the diagonal queues and whatever. So whereas all of my previous parks would have had straight edges or whatever, and you even saw that in Grosvenor Gardens, this would, this is the most realistic version of pathing and stuff that I've done. This area just came together really, really nicely. We've seen this bit already. And then the side of the lake. how this just changed over the years and how this was just built up over time. The Lido that was here, now that took, what, 4 different formats, I think, or 4 different forms in the end. The original, the remake, the rehash, and then this one. Yeah, so it must have been 4. I mean, I still love this park. It just offers the brilliant views, and then of course, then you've just still got the history that's living here. So here's the original dance hall. In hindsight, I am so glad I took the opportunity to not do anything with it, because you walk in here and it's still, including the path that the rogue bit of path that I've not taken away, but it is still the 1930s interior, and I'm so glad I didn't destroy the inside of here, because I think that would have just been one step too far. It was bad enough that we destroyed this area up here, you know, the original cafe that sat there until 2023, and all of those bits that came with it, and we just completely bastardized it with this plump up area, and it's grotesque, and it is amazing. Guys, I don't even know what the next big park series is going to need to be, because now I've gone back to some of these other ones, I'm just like, wow, how am I going to top Grosvenor Gardens? That's my question. I just don't think I can. But there is one more park that we do need to talk about, though, because your 5 minutes is up. So let's go and talk about that. And so, here we are at 8,000 hours, well, 7,200 officially, going full circle by having to create a park using no Theme Maker's Toolkit items. So that leaves one question. What does a park, created with just the pieces the game has given you, look like when it's built by some guy with too much time on his hands that happens to have theme park industry experience? Well, Jippety Point 2.0, of course. Yeah, here we go then, guys. We're back in the park, which is arguably the birthplace of Nerdchacho. It's just in a new form, because this is, of course, the 2024 remake of Jippety Point. Now, the challenge, well, create a park with no Theme Maker's Toolkit items. Check. Use all of your Planet Coaster experience. Check. Utilize every single piece of theme park industry that I've got. Check. Be creative with themes. Check. Make it as realistic as you possibly can. I'd like to say check. So this is definitely 8,000 hours worth of training, if you like. But let's talk through it, because I still love this park, right? You come down here, here's the entrance, and it's just a beautiful no Theme Maker's Toolkit entrance. Like, I rely on Theme Maker's Toolkit to do all of my entrance talking for me, but I don't need to, because this is decent. And like, even down to the actual ticket office itself, would it be different with Theme Maker's Toolkit? Yes. Am I going to do a Theme Maker's Toolkit pass? I think I might do. I kind of want to show you what this would look like with Theme Maker's Toolkit, but it doesn't need it. Look at it. It does what it needs to do. It's all good. Even Chacho toilets look good without Theme Maker's Toolkit. Like, I don't even know if I'd want to do TMTK in there. I really don't. The Eurofighter. Do you remember the original Eurofighter in the original Jippety Point? What a mess. What an absolute mess that was. But this is, of course, the new one. And it just looks so different, and it sits so differently, but it's perfect. It's perfect in that location. Exactly as I wanted it to be. Then you've just got the smattering of rides that are down here, and they've got elements of theming and elements of genericness, and that's fine. That's exactly how it needed to be. And then we've got the new coaster in here, so it's not the Woody anymore. It's now the RMC. There it is, the RMC, and it's based on Airy Force 1, right? So it's supposed to be a coaster that absolutely tumps it around its layout. You probably come off of it thinking that shouldn't be legal, like that's dangerous, and it's going to pull itself apart over time, and it's great. Like, it's just the perfect addition for this park. And then we've just got the booster bikes that are being used as jet skis. I keep saying this because it just needs pointing out. But of course, now I'm starting to use all of my experience of how a maintenance area would sit on the side of a lake and how it would be accessed and that sort of stuff. So yes, that's Theme Maker's Toolkit free, and I'm loving it. Over this way then, we've just got the Greek theming. This is a new theme for me. I had never done Greek theming before, and I think I did an alright job. But again, here's all of that theme park experience, even down to us sitting there thinking, it's okay that this doesn't have an access road, because this ride would be collapsed in closed season. So all that would happen is they would possibly remove some of these walls because they'd be temporary. The van would drive in and there's your access. So it's a small theme park utilising as much space as they possibly can. Even down to like this bit here. So the sitting on the side of a lake and just having a nice little seating area to have. This would be one of the original buildings that would have been here when it was the original Jippety, not the original Jippety Point that we know, but our historic Jippety Point. And then we've just got the theme transitions going along in here. So this is like a Gothic-y style building because it transitions from Western into the Viking area. And this is still, to this day, my crowning glory area of Theme Maker's Toolkit free stuff. I adore this building, right? In fact, all 3 buildings. This one back, 4 buildings. In fact, this building, this one, and then of course the spinning coaster building. It's just everything I wanted it to be. It's so Norse. It's so Viking. I mean, could you have done better? Yeah, absolutely. This isn't Disney. This is a mid-budget park, just putting an effort in. And then coming through and making this building here. And it's because it just creates all sorts of different design things. Like, this was just a complete experiment, and it just pulled off, and I absolutely love it. The other bit that I love is this pirate area. Like, this is just also a real cutesy, cozy little pirate area. I mean, you've seen all of this, right? So this isn't news, but it's just all of this stuff and all of this creative use of these things. Like, these are just 2 canopies that have been put together to create a new canopy. And yeah, I mean, none of it's groundbreaking, but it just reminds you that Planet Coaster is really, really fun as a game. And yes, you can pull off a decent park without Theme Maker's Toolkit. But I have missed it. I think I need to go back to it. Now, I don't know what the next series is going to be, but watch this space, because I'm starting to brew some ideas. But guys, thank you for getting to the end of this episode. What do you think? What do you reckon of that little journey through the history of Nerd Chacho as a player? Let me know in the comments below, please. And of course, leave a like and a subscription if you haven't already. And I'll see you for the next park series. Take care of yourselves, guys. Bye!